Alright, so we're going to be looking at some of the behind the scenes stuff in OMGitsfirefoxx's death animation. And before we get started, I just want to bring up real quick about making an animation of Captain Sparkles and Syndicate's fight. I don't plan on doing that just because it was just a casual fight. There wasn't too much, like, there wasn't like any emotion there, they were just fighting. It is what it is. There's nothing really to add to that, and I wouldn't want to force any type of like angry or intensity that wasn't there. So as of now, I'm not really planning on making a video of that, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to use that time to make something else that hopefully you guys will think will be awesome. But anyway, let's get to the relevant stuff here. So here's the opening scene where they're talking in the house. So the house is on the actual island, or on the island generated by the same seed. It's not the actual map. I generated the island with the seed and then just simulated or duplicated the house here. As far as the animation stuff, there isn't really anything too crazy about this. Just your normal. I'm using the same rigs with some minor alterations. The rabbit over here, Moo the bunny, he was originally in this cage thing here, but with the camera angles, you couldn't really see him, so I just moved him onto the lap, and I like how that turned out a lot better. The lighting in here also super simple. There's only one light here, which is this area light, and which is just raining down light from the ceiling. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this. Let's go ahead and hop into the next scene. Alright, so here we have what would be the next episode, episode 23, where she's above, and yeah, Captain Sparkle's like, I need milk, and then yeah. So there's nothing too crazy about this scene either, as far as, technological advancements in animation, trickery, I don't know. So again, this is the same seed. This is the actual temple they go into. I did my best recreating the path here. I even made there's a little hut over here and a crafting table that isn't there. Obviously, naturally, I don't know. Anyway, that doesn't actually show up in the shots, but it's there. And then also, when I exported this terrain, I didn't notice it at first, but this thing, the weirdest end portal ever, little box there, just came with it. I mean, I would like to know the statistics of a portal getting generated like that, because that's pretty crazy. But anyway, as far as lighting, I use the sun and sky, which I don't really like the sun and sky, and I've said that before, yet I'm using it all the time, because it really is. It's super convenient, and I like it. I don't dislike it because it looks bad. It looks really good. It's super like typical, and I mean it's like super boring. It's just like there's nothing. It's just like it's daytime, and when I'm watching like other videos, and they're done in Maya, I can immediately tell pretty much if it's rendered using sun and sky, because it just has this blah look. But it's great because you can just click a button, change a few settings around to get the little look you want, and it renders relatively quickly. It looks really good as far as realistically. But like I said, it's just kind of generic and boring. But I figured it gets all intense down below, so it would be fine here. So as far as the armor attached to the characters so some of the objects, most of the armor pieces here are just parented on. The only part that actually bends with is the torso, because the torso obviously is doing the most motion, so that's the only thing that bends with it. So this is applied to the torso with a wrap deformer. And yeah, that's. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, anything really noteworthy about this. Oh yeah. So if I enable sound real quick, not that. Okay. So in the first scene, the opening scene where they're having that conversation in the house, and at the end, Sparkles is like, "You will be fine." That isn't in there when they're originally having that conversation in the actual videos. He never says you will be fine. I just added that in from this. So if I go ahead and play this real quick,
you will be fine.
So that you will be fine is from this part.
You'll be fine.
I don't know if I can get through
where they're talking here.
You will be fine.
And I just chopped it in from this and put it in the first scene as well to just kind of like emphasized how fine it would be, how safe it was, which clearly wasn't the case. Yeah, just thought that was interesting. Anyway, moving on to the next scene here. All right, so here we have the main scene where all the stuff happens. So when I was first watching episode 23 and was devastated by the loss, I was trying to think. I knew what I must do, which was to make this video, and I was thinking of, all right, what's this gonna look and feel like? And when I'm making these, I always think about the climax and leading up to it, the important stuff in the middle first, and then I worry about the beginning and end. So this is kind of the picture here, which popped into my mind. Really wide shot of a deep ocean as someone's swimming down to the depths. So if I had like made concept art for this, which would have been a waste of time since I do this on my own, and there would be no point in making concept art for. Yeah. Anyway, if I were to do that, this is what it would look like. So this is what I was working from with this image in the back of my mind the whole time. So she swims down into here. So to bring up the lighting, so the lights was interesting. I spent I spent like an hour trying to figure out, okay, where's the light going to come from? Obviously, I can't just have light sources in the middle of the frame. They obviously have to be, disguised or hidden. So I was thinking, okay, light could come in through this opening here, but that would only light up this area. What about everywhere else? Light could come from around the corner here. And after like an hour of testing out and rendering different lighting setups, I realized, oh wait, these things are lights. I can just use these, make a facepalm. Because I'm not super familiar with the 1.8 stuff, and it didn't occur to me that these were lights, and I just kind of looked over that, kind of disregarded them, and then I was like, oh wait, I can just use these, and then I was happy, I was relieved, but I was kind of frustrated at the same time. I just wasted so much time, and the answer was in front of my face, but yeah, that was fun. Also, what was fun was the whole underwater, making the atmosphere of the water was cool because I'd never done anything like this before, and new stuff's always fun, especially like this. I really like the way it turned out, the way the light interacts with it and stuff. It's all I can't think of the word, but yeah, I really liked how it came out. It took a little bit. It's a little bit longer to render this kind of thing, and I actually had to render out about 50% of this scene again, because I render out on 3 different computers, and for some reason when I copy the files onto the other 2 computers, the texture for the pant legs was disconnected, but only the red channel was disconnected. So let me explain a little bit further. So for if you're not aware, the way armor textures are stored in Minecraft are on 2 separate layers. You have layer 1, which is the helmet, the chest plate, and the boots, and then layer 2, which is like this belt thing around the lower torso and the pant legs. And so that diamond layer 2 didn't automatically connect. So usually when I copy it onto hard drives and it's a new directory, as long as you keep everything in the project folder, Maya does a good job of automatically finding all the textures for the world and armor and characters and stuff. It all does that automatically. For some reason, only the red channel of the pant legs didn't connect, and they're in the same spot they're in the same directory as the layer 1, so it doesn't make any sense how this happened, but it didn't get connected. And when I rendered it out, I didn't notice at first. I check in every once in a while because it takes a long time to render. It took 2 days to render out on the 3 separate computers, and so I check in there often, make sure it looks good. Since the armor is already blue, without the red channel, it looks hardly different. I could only tell side by side. So after everything was rendered out, I thought it all was fine. I then lined the footage up, hit play, and then suddenly, when the footage from this computer, because it was fine on this computer, ran out somewhere around. I think I rendered 385 of the frames out on this computer. So once it jumped to 386, suddenly the pants changed color slightly, and I'm like, crap. I investigate, and I noticed, the file connected wrong. And it wasn't super noticeable. I could have just rendered out the few frames leading up to the next jump in the where the camera changes angle, and it would have hit it, and you wouldn't been able to notice. But I would have known, and it would have bothered me to no end. So I went through and re-rendered it for another. Took another day or so, which kind of sucked. But oh well. At least it's as it should be. Anyway, so the Guardian beams were rendered out on a separate layer, because you can see she just gets hit and there's nothing happening. It just and those are rendered out on a separate layer just because the glowing coming from the beams interacting with the fog adds about 20 seconds to the render time. Well, excluding the additional time. Doing them separately, I should say, saves about 20 seconds than doing them together. So I would just have the beams by themselves on a separate layer, and then I just kind of simulate what the fog does to the beams in After Effects, and it's pretty much no different from rendering out together, but it saves 20 seconds per frame roughly, and over almost 1,000 frames, 20,000 seconds. I guess you could convert that to minutes or hours and do the math there, but it's a good deal of time. So the Guardian comes in here, and you might not have noticed this because the beam usually blocks it out, but their eyes actually start to glow as they're charging up. So if you look at this one here, his eye starts glowing, and usually the beams would cover that, but since they're not visible here, you can see it. So the armor breaking was fun. Whoa, getting crazy. That was fun to make. So there is a command which will shatter any object into a bunch of little random pieces. But I shattered it by hand, just because that shatters things more close to how glass and really brittle objects shatter. Armor is usually made out of metal. I guess in this case it's diamond, so it would be closer to glass as far as how it shatters. But I had a metal material in mind, which is softer, which means when it gets broken apart, it's going to stay in bigger pieces and fewer pieces. Plus, I wanted there to be kind of like a hole in the center, as if the beam kind of just blew the hole out and then it fractured from there. So I could have some control of how it broke, and then the pieces dynamically, fly off after that. And I think that's pretty much it for this scene. Alright, and now we have, lastly, the graves, the scene where they're at the graves. This one came together really quickly. The torch emitter I had actually already made for Tucker's death animation. I made those because there are torches randomly sprawled out throughout the island, which are in some of the shots. And I made this for them, but it was kind of just distracting, and it didn't seem necessary, so I just ended up hiding them. The torches are still in the shots, but they're just objects. There's nothing coming off them. So I had these already made, and this one came together really quickly. I did this in a day. This whole just setting up the world, doing my best to recreate it as I always do, and animating it pretty much. I think I just did the whole thing in a day. And it wasn't even like a long day, it was like a short day. But yeah, you'll pass over to the graves, and then switches to these guys. And then the Sonya and Tucker are actually hidden, since I had to apply the ghostly effects to them. They are rendered on their own pass, so they're hidden here. But you can see the curves here, the controls kind of outline their motions. So yeah, like I said, those are rendered separately. Then he does his little "what's up" at the end, which a lot of people were into. Alright, so here is the Guardian rig. The actual rigging of the body parts isn't too complicated. The beam was pretty difficult. So as far as controls for the body, we just have a basic root control where you can place the whole thing. Eye control here can make it look around. And then also there's an angry face. And with smooth mesh on, it looks like this. So he's angry. I can also have him make his spikes come out, shing, which I didn't use in the video at all. And then I can use this to make his tail do stuff, twirl around and such. And then so that's pretty much it for the actual body. This didn't take time. For the beam, however, the whole rig took about a little over a day to make. The beam was obviously most of that time. So here is the main control, so I can move it around, and wherever this is, the beam will travel there. And then there are a few controls. So beam emission is just whether or not the beam is running. So if I, whoa, explosion. Let me jump back here, turn this up a little bit. And, whoop, yeah, there we go. So there the beam is emitting, and there's actually smoke coming off the beam, which isn't in the actual video because it like doubled how long it took to render. It was ridiculous, so I just turned it off because I was like, I'm not gonna, I mean, it's already taking 2 days to render. I wasn't gonna wait. I wasn't gonna do the whole 4 days just for a little bit of smoke because it's much more subtle. It's pretty obvious here, but it's much more subtle in the actual rendering. But I guess it would be more like steam since it's underwater. I don't know. But still, you need air to make, I don't know, some type of like, something indicating that it's very hot coming off the beam. But yeah, that doesn't actually show. And it's fun to play with it with interactive playback. You can like, and like the smoke follows. I don't know. I played with this for like 5 minutes when I finished it. Just like going around and shooting stuff. I don't know. So there's that. Beam color. So as it turns a hot orange as it's charging. And then we have the bulge and firing, and this contributes. So the actual beam in the game doesn't do anything other than just change color and then turn off when it hits. But to make the impact seem more forceful, I have a bulge and fire control. So what bulge does is, I can't do this interactively, but it's basically a deformer that that widens up the swirling part. So I'll just increment it. And it goes from 0 to 10. So 10 is all the way out here, which is a little bit too far. So as we get closer to 10, it gets all the way out here. And then 0 is all the way back here. So if I go to like 5, it should be roughly in the center. 5, there we go. So I would animate this from 0 to 10 when it's time for it to fire. And you can see it just sends out like this shock wave to emphasize impact. And likewise, to go with it is this control here called firing. And when this is set to 1, it ranges from 1 to, or from 0 to 1. When it's on, it widens up the center white beam part. So that would only be on for like a frame. And then this would be animated to follow the shockwave exactly and make that impact more forceful. And then last thing, we have the range control here, which controls how far the beam fires. It's weird. Whenever I change it while it's playing, it does this cool explosion. I mean, it's glitching out, but it looks pretty cool. Alright, so there aren't too many effects in this. Mainly just some color correction stuff, motion blur, and then some glowing or lighting effects here and there. And then for the beam part, so here we can look at it kind of frame by frame and look at it. So here's the bulge I was talking about. Here is the widening of the center beam as it goes. And like I said before, this is all to just emphasize the impact of the beam. I also increased how much motion blur, the sensitivity of the motion blur, like by a lot to really make it more like wavy and stuff. And then there's a deformer also, which is key to do like a shockwave when it hits. Make it look like a real hard thud. At least that's what I was going for. So yeah, that's pretty much, as far as effects, that's all it goes. And now you can see the glowing eye also that may have gotten missed. So I guess we can look at some before and afters. Here is after, which I guess isn't, I don't think you're supposed to start out with after, but after first, and then here's before. Oh my gosh, the difference. So boring. Ooh. I really like the first shot, or actually the second shot here. So without it, it's just kind of like super boring, and then with it, it really looks like the sun's hitting the water and diffusing off with like a bloom here, and then this is just like without it, it's just like a boring old like gradient of darkness and blah, and oh. Anyway, and then for the ghost effect, so here, like I said, I rendered out the Tucker and Sonya on their own layer. Here is the original footage. And so I basically just dropped the opacity, tinted it blue, and then had a slowed down smoke effect drive the opacity of them. And that's pretty much it. And then I also thought it'd be a nice touch to have her fade out as the camera turns. So we have like halfway, and like you'd see her fade out and him fade in, depending on where the camera's looking. I thought would be like a nice touch. All right, and for really quick, I want to show. So I didn't show these last time. I actually made these when I was doing Tucker's death animation. These were some different ideas for how the outro part, where it goes like where the cymbals come in, and then Trinity Island, all epic like, comes in. So that wasn't my first try. The final product was not my first try. This is what I started with. This is as far as I got before I was like, no, I don't like it. It was like kind of these animating and I didn't like it. And then the second thing I went for was this kind of like a more smoke. Kind of reminded me of like the Call of Duty Ghosts stuff. The way, so like it plays. Let me jump back. This was the idea for this. This one got a little bit further, but I wasn't really feeling it at the time. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment. The original video will be linked in the description. If you haven't seen it yet, it kind of just got ruined for you, but whatever. Also, if you haven't seen Tucker's death animation, you should see it. It's great. That'll be in the description as well. And until next time, bye.